on neither one of them yet. Test it.
Do you have the link?
Yeah, he's about to give it to me. He's about to test it. I got it now. We got it. Test. Yeah, if you just give me the link.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 5. Testing. Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go on and get started. Today, the Department of Music at Virginia State University, we have a very special guest with us. We have returning to campus for the first time in any capacity other than just driving through, for the first time in 49 years, Dr. O'Neal Sanford. Many of the individuals in the room today were students of Dr. Sanford when he was here as director of bands from 1973 to 1976, as he led the Sounds of Distinction marching band. Since I've been the band director at Virginia State University, one of the things I've always tried to do was connect the generations, from the Marching 110 to the Sounds of Distinction to the Trojan Explosion. And throughout each of those generations, a lot of people paid a very dear cost for us to get to where we are now. And Dr. Sanford is an integral part of our history. So we're excited to have him back as one of the integral parts of this process. Also, we are obviously excited to have Dr. Mark Phillips in the house today. Thank you. Dr. Phillips served as the director of bands from 2003 to 2012. And today we're just going to have a conversation with Dr. Sanford. He's going to tell a little bit about his story coming from Louisiana to Virginia and everywhere he went. And for those who don't know, Dr. Sanford served as director of several institutions, some of them including Mississippi Valley State, Virginia State University, Jackson State University. Most people know him from his time at Norfolk State University, right down the road. However, today we're excited to welcome him. Everyone, Dr. O'Neal Sanford.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm very excited to be back on the campus at Virginia State. It's been 51 years since I've done anything official on this campus. I passed through when I was at Norfolk State for 12 years. I passed through and saw the campus and the campus growing. And it's amazing what's happening here I came through the back way, saw the practice field, what used to be practice field where we started at. So when Taylor called me and asked me to come and be here, I said, Taylor, I do not want to do a lecture. I just want to come and talk. And I love sharing the experiences that I've had throughout the profession with students in music education. Students in music education, are you here? Yes. Yeah, those are the people that I love talking to because I tell them about the good and the bad, and the ugly. It's all nothing is always 100% what on the top side. So I love sharing that, and I do it from the Virgin Islands to the Bahamas, all over the United States since I retired. I'm with the Conselma Company as a clinician and a consultant, so I go around and do all of that kind of stuff. So I'm enjoying it. My wife is not too happy with it until she gets tired of me, and then she reminds me that she'll say to me, don't you have a trip to go to? Kind of thing. So I don't know where to get started with this, Taylor, but I'm just gonna kind of start telling you a little about maybe who I am. And it's not enough time in the rest of the day for me to share with you 51 years of experiences, and I've been blessed. But I'm a young guy that came out of Louisiana, a little city called Slaughter, Louisiana, population about 250 people. And I lived out in the rurals there. We only had elementary school. And then when you left elementary school, you went to high school and then on to college. No middle school or anything like that. They did not have music in the programs in the elementary school where I went to, and my mom was a teacher. So when I finally finished 8th grade and went to high school, I walked into the band room and told the band teacher, who was a female at the time, that I wanted to play the trombone. I had seen only the trombone in when school was out in my earlier years, because my mom would send my sisters and I to New Orleans every summer. I was the only male, and I had 5 sisters, and God helped me get through that. But she would carry us down to New Orleans, and in her community, the brass bands would come out and play, and everybody would bring their instruments and hang out, and I heard the trombone. And so I was amazed with what those guys could do with that slide with the trombone. So I fell in love with the trombone, but didn't have a program in the schools to learn to play it. So when I finished, I went to high school, and I asked the band director, I said, I want to play in the band. She said, what do you want to play? I said, trombone. She said, well, I'm going to have to give you a test. So she gave me a test. I failed the rhythm test and the pitch test. She would not let me in band my first year in high school because I failed the test. Luckily, thank God, she got pregnant and had to take a maternity leave. Yeah, that's a blessing anytime you bring a child in. And she took off, and another band director named Earl Sharif from New Orleans came to the high school, took the job and he came, and as soon as he got on campus, I ran over to him and said, I want to play the trombone. And he said, well, your parents will buy you an instrument? I said, I don't know. And he said, well, stay after school. So he stayed after school, brought me home, sat down with my dad at the table, had dinner with us, and he said, your son want to play the trombone? Can you afford to buy him one? My dad looked at me and said, hey, you want to play that thing, boy? I said, yes, sir. And I know the deal is with my dad, once you started something, wasn't no quitting. You're going to follow through on it. He said, if I get this horn, I expect you to progress on it. And I knew the deal. I knew the deal, so I had to stay with it. But prior to that, when I first, after I left the lady band director, the coach decided that he was going to ask me to play football. Because I was pretty fast. I could run fast and all that kind of crap. He wanted me to be an end on the team. So I went out, and this 250-pound lineman came through the line, made an imprint on me in the ground, picked me up and slam dunked me, and that ended my football career quick. I said, no, this is not going to work for me. I went back and got the trombone. But anyway, the same night that they were home, I'm going to make this short because it can go on, and I'm open for questions and all that kind of stuff. I got the trombone, went to actually O'Neill's Music House and bought the trombone, and I come to find out my mom had named me after a music store. I was named after O'Neill's Music Store. She played the piano, and that's where she used to ride. She used to get a music from the music store. I said, Mama, come on now. You didn't name me after a music store, but she did. Anyway, picked the trombone up, and then that's where I got started with the trombone. Stayed after school the whole bit. Every day, advanced myself to become the president of the band association at the end of my sophomore year, and the remaining 2 or 3 years. And finished college and went to Southern University. When I went to Southern University, because I had started late on the instrument, I had no confidence that I was going to be in music or do anything in the music, but I had skills in shop, and my shop teacher had encouraged me to register in engineering. So when I went to Southern University, my first summer, I registered in engineering. I was going to be an engineering major. And of course, my high school band director from New Orleans heard through the grapevine that I had registered in engineering at Southern University, got in his car in New Orleans, drove to Baton Rouge, found me on the campus, had my mom in the car, found me on the campus and said, no, you need to change your major to music. And I went and auditioned passed the audition, and the same summer I changed my major from engineering to music education. Now, I had a chance to get at him about that just before he passed away. And I went to him and I said, Mr. Cherie, he had been very ill. And I think I may have been at the University of Pittsburgh at the time. And so I went down to New Orleans to visit with him, and I said, you know what? I had a bone to pick with you. And he said, what's that, O'Neill? I said, do you remember when you had me to change my major from engineering to music education? You know what you did to me? He said, what happened? I said, well, when I came down to Louisiana to see you, I would have been in my Lear jet flying down. You had stayed in instrumental music education. So that went on, and went on, got my 4-year degree at Southern University. And then, meanwhile, at the end of my sophomore year, I had my first child. So I ended up getting married at age 19, and all kinds of trouble started happening then because I had to get a job. My dad was financing, like about 3 or 4 of us was in college at the time. And I was the second child in, so I had to go on and get my job, get a job so I could take care of the baby. And so I finished up at Southern University, and then my next mentor, who was the chairman of the Department of Music, found a job for me in Faraday, Louisiana, my first job. Went to the job, I found out not only was I the band director, I was also the choir director. I didn't know that. They didn't tell me that when I interviewed, and of course, I didn't do too well as a singer, but that was my first job. Stayed there for 1 year. Next time, college band director called me and said, O'Neill, there's a job for you at Mississippi Valley State College as the arranger and trombone teacher at Mississippi Valley State. So he said, all you got to do is go and interview. I took the interview, ended up getting the job at Mississippi Valley my second year out after college. I stayed there for 5, 6 years as the trombone teacher, got my master's degree as a trombone instructor and arranger for the band. And then my 6th year there, I became the director of bands at Mississippi Valley. And life changed again for me. Carried the Mississippi Valley State College to the second ever Battle of the Bands in Dallas, Texas, and won first place in that competition. They had 6 trophies, I won 5. We won 5 trophies, and I think Texas Southern won 1 trophy. So when that happened, time to move again, I got another call from chairman of the Department of Music. O'Neill, there's a job in Petersburg, Virginia. Dr. Howell Jones, a friend of mine who was in the Army with me, recommended you for the job at Virginia State. I said, Virginia State? He said, yes, you need to go. It's time for you to get out to Delta. Plus, my wife didn't want to be at Itabena, Mississippi no more. So that was an opportunity for me to get my family out of the Delta. So I came, interviewed for the job, was on campus a few minutes, and Harold, what's his name? Howard Jones offered me the job. He said, I'm fine. He said, you good to go? The job is yours. So I came here. I had about 40, 45 kids in the band. Stayed around for 3 years. We made some progress with the program. 3rd year, we were right at 100 kids. Band was taking care of business. We were having fun, and I was enjoying building the program. And wasn't ready to leave. Wasn't even thinking about leaving. But now, if you blame anybody for me leaving Virginia State College, it would be Dr. Carl Harris. Y'all remember that name? Dr. Carl Harris and I became very, very good friends. And I would go and visit him often at his home. Matter of fact, he turned me on to Barry White. I didn't even know who Barry White was. but I said, Carl Harris turned me on to that. My first, my last. we would go to coffee often, a couple of times a week. Carl said to me, O'Neill, there's a job at the University of Minnesota that I think that you should apply for. I said, man, are you nuts? Minnesota, cold, all them white folks up there, man, I ain't going up to to Minnesota. What are you talking about? He said, well, man, I think they're not gonna hire me. I'm a black man. You got a university with 50,000 students in it, and they have 10 black students at the university. I'm not going up there. You crazy? And so kind of let that go. Next couple of weeks, I get a letter in the mail from the University of Minnesota saying, hey, thank you for your interest in our job. What the hell, kind of thing. What? I didn't express no interest. Come to find out, I opened the letter, and a couple of days later, we came to coffee, Dr. Harris, and I said, Doc, I got this letter in the mail from University of Minnesota telling me about me applying for a job. And he kind of laughed. He said, O'Neill, I sent you the letter of inquiry out because now is the time for a black person to become a director in one of the PWI's, predominantly white universities in the country. He said, you will be the first ever to occupy a position like that. I said, man, you're kidding. I'm not gonna do that. So I talked it over, of course, with my mentors, all the way my high school band director and my college band directors, chairman of the music department, and my best friend, Paul I. Adams, he arranged some things for the band when we were here. And everybody was telling me, O'Neill, you're a big boy now, you need to make a decision about what you're gonna do. And here's my wife sitting with my second child up on the hill in that little apartment up there, getting ready to have my baby at any time. And I said, nah, I'm not gonna do that. So finally, I thought about it, and everybody, oh, you don't have anything to lose, just go do the interview. I had been up and talked to him, sent all the information up. At the time, there were a lot of problems going on up in Minneapolis. Affirmative action had put the pressure on predominantly white universities to start hiring black people or having black people to apply for the various jobs. I was aware of that, and I didn't want to be a ploy for them to say, hey, we had a finalist, a black finalist, for this position. So I don't want to get involved with that. But anyway, all of my mentors kept telling me, O'Neill, you should pursue this job. You don't have anything to lose. Well, they invited me up for the interview. My wife was sitting there getting ready to have my child, and I said, I'm not leaving. I don't have any family here. I'm not leaving. My friend Paul Adams, who was the band director at Howard University, he got in the car and said, you hold on. The night before I was scheduled to leave, he drove from Howard University, came down here and said, I'm gonna be here with Rose until she have this baby. You need to go ahead on and take the job interview. So I did that, jumped on the plane the next morning, took off, headed up to Minneapolis, and en route to Minneapolis, my child was born when I was flying to Minnesota. But cut short and move on. Got there, came back. How did it go? I said, that was an experience. It was cold, snow was up to my butt. When I got down, I had never experienced. I said, they're not gonna hire me. Went through the process. In the process of rushing out, I forgot I was supposed to bring some arrangements along for them to play on the interview. So when he picked me up from the airport, he said to me, O'Neill, where are the arrangements that you're supposed to bring along for the interview? I said, oh my God, I forgot them. I had left the arrangements here. We didn't have no fax machines at the day. I couldn't get them to fax it to me. I couldn't take a picture and send a photo of it. So I'm headed up to an interview and don't have any music. And so the gentleman who picked me up had been the director of bands up there. He was a composer. When I found out I didn't have music, I said, do you have any manuscript paper in your car or in your briefcase? And he said, I may have some score paper in the trunk of the car. When we got to the hotel, he went in the trunk. Sure enough, he had some score paper. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I've got to have something for tomorrow for the arrangement. And he said, really? I said, yeah. So he pulled off, checked in the hotel, 7-Eleven across the street, went over there with some pencils and sat down at the desk in the hotel and came up with an arrangement the next morning about 7 o'clock the next morning. Straight off the bat, no piano, I had to come up, I had to do something. And the next morning, he pulled up to pick me up for the interview the next morning at 8 o'clock. And I got in the car, I said, here you go. And he said, what the world? I said, when did you do this? I said, last night. So I ended up having to do an arrangement overnight. I had not been asleep on my way to the interview on campus. Went on the campus, went through all of the crap you have to go through, meeting the vice presidents. Everybody was happy. Oh, we got us a black finalist. We solving all of the challenges, the affirmative action is having. And we got us a black finalist and blah, blah, blah. So played the arrangement through. When I played the arrangement through, the students in the band got up and gave a standing ovation. That's what turned the whole thing around. Now, mind you, the university they had one young man who had been there, who was a graduate of the program, who they were really training and programming him to be the next marching band director there. But the kids favored me, so I'm doing what? The interview. I've got affirmative action sitting back here at a table. I've got the committee sitting back there, got alumni at a table back there, so I mean big time stuff. And they lock you away in a room, give you a musical score, to be able to stand up and lock me away in a room for about a half an hour, told me to look at the score I've never seen before, the whole bit, so it was kind of tough. Come to find out. Came back home, see my new baby. Next couple of days, I get a call from the university saying that you have been selected by the committees to become the director at the University of Minnesota. What? I didn't even expect it to happen, but it happened. Now what? All of the eyes in instrumental music education were on the eyes of this black guy that was now the conductor of Big Ten Band. That was a lot of pressure. That was a lot of pressure. And thank God for Southern University, because Southern University did what? Equipped me with all of the basic fundamentals of music I needed in order to be able to sit down to that desk and write that arrangement. I knew how music was put together out of Southern. Now, Southern did not have all of the necessary tools that I needed when I graduated. We did not have a fully instrumentated symphonic band at Southern. We didn't even own the instruments. I had never seen an E-flat bass clarinet or contrabass clarinet when I left Southern University. I had not ever seen one. But the one thing that they gave me that I know that was happening here in our black schools is that in our harmony classes, all of you young people out there, you gotta be on top of it, because you have to be prepared to go out and apply for a job in the global market. Not no black school in the global market, regardless of where it is, you've got to be able to do it. You've got to be able to go out and take that score like I did and stand on a podium that you've only seen for what, half an hour, get on the podium, look at that score and go through the compositions. That's why I'm hearing, and I'm happy to hear some news, some great news about what's happening at Virginia State. I'm hearing that this program is really getting great support. Here from now that the symphonic side, the wind ensemble side of the program is happening, because that is so key You know, and unfortunately, I don't want to get on our HBCU schools, but there's still a lot of challenges and things that we need to fix in our schools. And that brings me to another point, and I can go on with my career, but I want to talk to the young people. And just to finish that whole part about, that's how I got into Minnesota. And then at the end of I'm gonna go back there and I'm gonna wrap this up right quick. I don't know how much time I have. But at the end of my 8th year at the University of Minnesota, there was a position for Director of Jazz Studies there, and I considered I wanted to do that. It was time for me to change and do something else. They were not going to open the door for me to be the director of the wind ensemble. There's no way I was going to get that job, so I wanted to apply for jazz studies. So I made application for sabbatical leave to go to the Conservatory of Music in Copenhagen, Denmark, to study jazz with Thad Jones. Anybody know that name? I was granted that opportunity to go to Denmark and study at the conservatory with jazz. Got a chance to play in the Danish radio band, traveled throughout Europe, even over in Yugoslavia and Hungary and all those places before the Iron Curtain was taken down back in Berlin. I was over there studying with Thad Jones over there so I could enhance my resume to be able to apply for the job as jazz director at the University of Minnesota, just to be able to get that experience. But anyway, that was a wonderful experience. Came back, and when I returned, telephone calls were coming from the University of Pittsburgh. Yeah, because now they had this black guy that was a conductor surviving in this environment. Pittsburgh had the same problem as Florida State and everybody else. They didn't have any blacks who were becoming finalists, for these jobs, and affirmative action was all over them. So Pittsburgh, they said they're gonna hire me off of the University of Minnesota because I had proven them that I could work in that environment. And so they came at me. At the end of my 9th year, threw a lot of money in my face. They made it very, very attractive for me to come to the University of Pittsburgh, so I left Minnesota, went and became the director of bands at the University of Pittsburgh, which is another predominantly white university, where I survived for 10 years. There were a lot of problems, racial issues that I had to deal with, many more than I had to deal with in Minnesota. I even had a cross burned on my lawn, actually, in Pittsburgh back in the 80s. That was kind of ugly. But I stayed there for 10 years, and then my mom became ill and called me and told me I needed to come home and take care of the family business, rental properties that the family had down there. And so I took an early retirement from the University of Pittsburgh, moved down to Louisiana, and had the greatest experience I ever had, Mr. Taylor, is after being down there, Mom moved on. I was down there with my dad, trying to keep him alive. There was nothing wrong with him, but he tried to die after my mom died, passed away. And one of my cousins was a principal at a middle school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I was just hanging around with Dad, helping him getting the property back in order, the rental property back in order, every day giving him an assignment or something to do. And my cousin called me and said, "Man, why don't you come start me a program at a middle school?" Oh my God. I had taught on college level, I had never been in a middle school. And was that an experience? Walk in that classroom, them kids, they were mean to each other. First of all, I was surprised to find out how mean they were. And they'd be swinging on the lights, and man, they'd be hyped. And after about 2 weeks, I wanted to quit. I said, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't control. I don't know how to control these little people. I mean, they was bad people. And finally, my cousin said, hey, you just got to take control of the classroom. So I had to come up with a system to get through that. And so I started off by what? Putting my desk in the center of the floor. On the walls around, I put numbers. And John, when you come in, the first thing you do is do this and do that, do this. And you sit over there. That's your place to be. And I found two little thugs who was running the classroom. They were bullies. And I said, I need you guys to do something for me. I'm put you in charge of the instrument storage room, and you are over here. And when they come in, I need you at the door instructing them to do that. And they were standing at the door, and they were talking to them streetwise. Get your ass over there and sit down, you know. you know, your number is 5. Why in the hell are you on 12? That's your spot. You know what I mean? They took over that part of it. But I had to find a way to really control them. I had to be creative. So I came up with that. My desk was in the middle of the floor. And so finally, after a couple of weeks, they got it going and got everybody all settled down. And so I stayed a full year at that middle school. At the end of the year, I ended up writing them a school song, and they played it at the graduation. So I found a way to be successful there. But I wasn't satisfied yet. So I'm taking care of Dad, giving him assignments. Am I talking about what I'm supposed to be driving? I'm opening this up for questions in a minute, or just comments. I want to talk to my young people too, but I'm gonna speed through this, Dr. Phillips, if I can. And so I'm dealing with Dad. Tell Dad, take these guys over there to this apartment, take them some 1-inch screws, do this with these guys over here every day. And so after I came home one day, my dad said, son, sit down, I want to talk to you. I need to eyeball you. That meant I knew it was a serious conversation coming up. I need to eyeball you. Sat down at the table, he said, look, you have been the greatest son that anybody could have ever had. You've given up a big-time job, you love to travel the world, and he said, I think you may want to consider going back to work. I said, no, Dad, I can't. He said, no, I'm going to be fine. He said, hey, I'm proud of you, son. You sacrificed your job and moved your family back to Louisiana. And then he said, besides, you're getting on my damn nerves ordering me around. Go back and get a job, all kind of things. So I said, really, Dad? He said, yes. Threw my resume out there, wanting to come back to what? An HBCU school. Because why? Because I had gained all of this knowledge, and I had all these experiences in the PWI that I didn't have and what were not available for me here or at Southern University or nowhere else, because we didn't have the resources. The resources were there. So I had the experiences that I had at University of Minnesota and the University of Pittsburgh, with those large programs with 5 concert bands, 7 jazz ensembles, I mean, just loaded, all kinds of equipment, faculty, deep staff, the whole bit. Our black schools didn't have that. They didn't have the facilities. They did not have a counter-bass E-flat. So I left Southern University and I'd never seen a counter-bass clarinet before, but now I got to go out and teach. So that brings another point. Put my resume out there, not getting any hits. Got hits from some white schools, not getting any hits from any black schools. Finally, I got a hit from North Carolina Central. I accepted the interview, came in, talked to the president. Spent 2 days down there. Finally, the last day they got to the president, the guy says to me, oh, mister, what do we need to do in order to be able to get you to come and take this program at North Carolina Central? And I said, what do you expect? He said, we want a 200-piece band and blah, 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 blah. I said, okay, that's manageable. What size, how many students you have? 5,000. I said, well, we can get 200 kids out of that. I said, what's the budget like? And he said, well, Right now, we got $50,000 for the budget, but I'm going to have the alumni to do some special fundraisers for the program, and you know how that goes. I said, sir, you're asking me to produce a 200-piece band with a $50,000 budget. You're not going to give me money to bring staff in, and young people, this is something that you got to be on top of when you go out there for them jobs. You got, you don't want to go out and accept a job that you know you're going to fail in. So he said, well, we're going to do some fundraisers, starting, I said, sir, I got up, walked up to the desk, and I said, thank you very much for your time, sir, but if that's all you can do, you're wasting my time and your time. I cannot even consider accepting a job. And I walked out of the interview at North Carolina Central, came back to the hotel, and Dr. Phillips, I made a stop by the liquor store and got me a little shot of Hennessy, going back to the hotel, because I had to get my thing together. I had been offered another job at the University of Wisconsin, and snow again. So I called my wife that night. She said, how did it go? She was excited about me going to Central, right? And I said, well, it didn't go too good. I said, look like I'm gonna have to take this job up. And she said, oh no, I'm not going back to the cold climate. That's it. We're not going. We've been up there for too long. 19 years is enough. I'm not going back. But if you're gonna go ahead on and do your thing. So, well, I can't leave my family. So I get back to the hotel, take me a little shot off of my Hennessy, sit back. Here comes a telephone call. May I speak to O'Neal Sanford? I said, yeah, this is O'Neal Sanford. He said, whatever you do, don't sign that damn contract at Central. That's exactly what he said. Guess who it was? Dexter Allgood. Dexter Allgood was now the chairman of the Department of Music at Norfolk State University. And he saw my letter on the desk inquiring about the job there. I said, Dexter, and we hadn't talked in 15, 20 years almost. He said, yeah, I'm the chairman of the Department of Music. He said, I've already talked to the president about you, and I want you to go to the airport. We're gonna send you a ticket to fly to Norfolk, and we want you to come to Norfolk State. I said, man, you're kidding. He said, no, your ticket will be at the airport. Got up the next morning, went to the airport. My ticket was there, flew into Norfolk, and he met me at the airport, picked me up at the airport and carried me directly to the president's office at Norfolk State. And when I walked in the door 5 minutes after I was there, she said, what is it gonna take? I know who you are. I know your resume, where you came from, the experiences. I need you to come take this program and turn it around at Norfolk State University. She said, what is it gonna take? I said, a brand new Cadillac and a $150,000 salary. The Cadillac. She said, oh my God, I don't even make that. But we laughed that off. Then she called the vice president, said to the vice president, take O'Neal out to lunch, and I want a contract in his hand at the end of the day. And sure enough, she carried me out to lunch at the end of the day. I went back to the hotel. 6 o'clock that evening at the hotel, she walked there with a contract for me to sign. That's how I ended up at Norfolk State. And then, of course, I signed a contract for 12 years, and I got tremendous support. Best presidents I've had were 2 female presidents at Norfolk State, and I found out how to get to them. So I knew how to maneuver women because I had them 5 sisters. I could work that now. I could work that pretty good. But they hired me there, and they gave me tremendous support. And so we were able to turn that program. Dexter left at the end of his first year, my first year. When he left, they pushed me to be the chairman of the Department of Music, which gave me control of the entire budget. So that's when I was able to hire my dream team. So I was able to hire 4 additional staff persons as a result of being the chairman. So that's what happened. So I stayed there for 12 years, retired. Three weeks later, after I retired from Norfolk State, Jackson State called me and asked me to come help them rebuild the program. I went to Jackson State. They had 120 students in the band program when I went there. I didn't have to write any music. All I had to do was recruit. So I recruited the Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, all over the United States. At the end of my third year, I had recruited 349 kids for the Jackson State program. So that was the end of my career as a conductor. And after that, moved down to Louisiana. So that's enough of old Neil Sanford, and I put the young man to sleep there. You got any kind of questions or anything anybody want to ask? I can go on. I could probably go on and on, but let me tell them about the HBCU. Yeah. And I'm going to be quick on this one. When I returned to the HBCU schools after being back at Norfolk State for a couple of years, I realized that many of our programs were still in bad shape and didn't have comprehensive music programs. Now, when you go out there and apply on a job today, you got to be able to apply in the global job market. You know what I mean? I mean that seriously. And I came back and I still had we had too many of our HBCU schools who did not have comprehensive music programs. I mean, they were in worse shape than they were when I graduated from Southern University, some of the band programs. And so once I realized that, I said, I've got to make a move in that my second year. So I came up with this idea of organizing the HBCU National Band Directors Consortium. That's now, and we just finished our 21st year, and what we do every year is we get students from our HBCU schools to come to Atlanta. We put together an ensemble that's with a complete and comprehensive program. So any student that's at a school that's never played in a fully instrumentated concert band will experience that at least 1 or 2 times before they leave and go out in the job market. How are you gonna go and stand on a podium and conduct, and you got instruments in this band that you conducted that you've never even heard before? Like I was back in the 60s. I had never heard bass clarinet sitting on the bottom of the clarinet section. I had never heard that till I went to the University of Michigan and started going to clinics and workshops. I was like a kid in a candy store when I heard that counterbass clarinet sitting on the bottom of that clarinet section and everything was vibrating. I was like, oh my God, what is that? And so the organization provides these opportunities for what? For students to come to Atlanta, play in a band composed of students from the various schools with full instrumentation so they can have the experience 1 or 2 times before they go out to the global job market. Does that make sense, everybody? So that's the purpose of our organizations. And that's one of my biggest achievements that I've had in the profession, is to be able to establish that. And then now I'm going to shut up and see if anybody got any questions they want to ask. I could go on forever and ever here because 51 years is a lot of time. Yes.
So if anyone has any questions, I'll just bring the mic because we're live streaming it. First of all, obviously, Dr. Sanford brings a wealth of knowledge just with his experiences, and we often talk about the comprehensive program, and I've talked to him a lot about how that is happening here at Virginia State. And we have many of our programs that are not experiencing that. So that's the environment that we're creating here for these students. But I know many of the former students are back. If anybody just want to share any words or ask any questions, I just will bring you the mic. Anybody? Come on, everybody can't be quiet. Yes, sir, Jason.
Hey, Dr. Sanford. My name is Jason. I'm a music production major and a senior. My question to you is, when you were director of the Sounds of Distinction, what were the prerequisites for musicians to get into the band?
When I was
the Sounds of Distinction.
When you were director here, what were the prerequisites for students to get in the band program?
Probably what they are now. First of all, you must be able to play your instrument. That's number one. You know, if you came in and you knew how to put it together and you could play it, you could make a sound at the time. If you wanted to do it, we found a way for you to get it done. As compared to some of the larger programs, especially PWI programs, most of the students who came in those programs had studied privately, had private lessons in a lot of cases, and now kids don't. So we just happened for kids to be able to participate. When I was here, they came in and they could kind of wanted to do it. We found a way for them to get it done. Well, if I understand the question, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Talk to me.
Okay. I was just thinking, I guess to get into a band, in my mind, I'm thinking knowledge and the ability to play, say, the 12 major scales is a good prerequisite to have. Although, I guess from middle to high school, if they come from a lower economic background,
Right.
and their band programs don't have that kind of tutelage, then how do we fix the problem of
Having the students be prepared.
how do we get them better prepared to play at a collegiate level, especially if they come from lower economic backgrounds where they can't afford private tutelage and private lessons?
Well, if I understand what you're asking me, during the time that I was here, like I said earlier, in many schools, you can go out and get involved with the local community if you're a band director, and assist, the directors in the middle schools and the high schools with the problems. And maybe if you're a college band director, you can take some of your better students and let that be a work study program for them. They go over, and if they're a trumpet player, and you go over, your work study is to go over to, the elementary school or the middle school and work with the trumpets 1 or 2 times a week. If you're a clarinet player, there are all kinds of systems that you have to find. And then otherwise, if a kid walks into my office at the time and say, I wanted to play, I want to participate, I'll listen to the student and say, hey, maybe you're gonna have to go and let's do this. Let's set up some lessons with you. Get some of the students in the program here, for an example, at Virginia State. Take a kid who's really interested, because at that age, they don't know what they can or cannot do. And most of the time, all you have to do is provide them the opportunity and take the kid, and may not get in his freshman year, but if he really wants it, and he works over it, and you put a program together for him to advance himself and study, then he'll have success. So, that's just have to be creative.
Okay.
It's all about being creative.
No, that's all I got.
Yeah. And you're a freshman, you said? You're a senior? You getting ready to graduate? Yeah. What's your instrument? What do you plan to do? What do you want to do? You want to teach in middle school, high school, collegiate?
Well, what I would really like to do is compose. I want to be a film score, or I want to be a video game music score.
Well, you need you first of all, when you get your degree here, you need to go to another university.
I've been told that.
Okay, yes, you do that. I mean, I always tell you, expand your horizon. In other words, go to another university that's got, find somebody with another voice box that's going to talk maybe about the same problem and approaches, but just coming from a different voice box. You understand? And then you're going to expand your knowledge. And then from there, if you go on study, go to another school and, break the cycle. Because Mr. Taylor gonna give you as much as he can give you while you're here, and then Mr. Taylor, you know, you go on to maybe whatever, Juilliard or wherever, some school that's beyond. And then being a percussionist, let me tell you the advantage you have. It's very, very few percussionists who have degrees, doctorate degrees as a percussionist. Very, very few, white, black, blue, green, yellow, whatever. Get your doctorate degree in percussion and the job market would open wide for you, very wide. You know, not only black schools, white schools gonna be coming at you. You know, schools in foreign countries will be coming at you. So that's a rarity. So get that degree, get that undergraduate, get your graduate degree somewhere else, University of Virginia, go somewhere else, Illinois, and if you're successful there, stay in a doctorate program, get your doctorate, and if I'm still around, you come find me and give me $100 bill. Yeah, so that's on point. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, Doc, this is James Gatewood at Virginia State, Director of Jazz Studies.
Yes, sir.
Well, I want to ask you, when you was at Southern and being a trombonist, and when you started writing those scores, and you didn't have a pianist or anything in front of you, how did you really go about, advancing your skills as a trombonist and inserting that into the score when you was writing your scores? In terms of you being able to go and doing some work outside, performing.
Well, first of all, in order to be a trombone player, you have to have a pretty sharp ear on you because you don't have a valve to push. You know, you can kind of come close to a pitch, but everything on the trombone, when you leave the first position, now we got the trigger too, but you leave the first position, you got to be all what about ear. So your ear is going to develop as a trombone player. And then in your harmony classes, in your harmony classes is where why I was able to sit down to that table and write that arrangement, because I understand how music was put together. When I hear a chord, I know it's the 7th or the 3rd or the 5th or what, augmented ninth, whatever. If I hear a chord, I'm gonna be able to identify those notes, that character as to what they do. So once you get to that point, you at home. So like I said, going back to your question, once that ear is developed and you understand how music is put together, you're good to go. I guess I answered that. Yeah.
Dr. Sanford?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Phillips? Dr. Sanford, you started mentioning something to them when you were talking about your days at Virginia State University, but there's something that you didn't make mention of. And
you?
No.
How you got on my nerves when I was here?
That was
every
life.
Every time I looked around, you had a bag on your shoulder coming up to me saying, Dr. Sanford, look at this arrangement. Yeah.
That was a learning experience.
That's true, people. That's true. But Mark was on it. Boy, he was on it. But go ahead, Mark.
For the sake of students that are at the university right now, they don't realize what was here in the past. They don't realize that in 1976, Jet magazine always had a section about bands, and they would rate them. And when they would rate them, Jackson State was #1, Florida A&M was #2, Virginia State was #3 in the nation. And they don't know these things.
Really? I didn't know it.
But it's in Jet.
I remember the magazines, yeah.
Yeah, and we would run and get the magazines because we wanted to see what was going to be in it. We also wanted to know what was going to be the music that would be high on the polls so that we could tell you what to write for us. Because you could write fast.
Well, I had a child I had to feed, so I had to get it done. I go back to that. Yeah, I do. I vaguely remember that, Mark. I was just trying to advance the program at Virginia State, and I've forgotten the president's name now. when I was here, but I had gotten to his ear. And of course, the success of any band program, especially on the collegiate level and high school and middle school too, is that your ability to be able to communicate or get to the people in places that's got the power.
Yes.
You know, if you could get to the president, like the presidents, those female presidents I was telling you about at at Norfolk State, I could go knock on that door and say, I came to have breakfast with you. Or I'd meet them at the car in the morning when they're coming to work. And when they get out the car, I would open the door for them. And she'd say, O'Neill, what you want? You know, I mean, that's the way I had to maneuver. And even in high schools, you know, you've got to be able to get to the principal. You've got to be able to get to superintendent of schools if you can. If not, get a person that can get you there. I could call the secretary, the president at Norfolk State, and say, look, has she got an appointment this morning? And he said, yeah, she's got appointments all the morning. I said, I need to slide in for a few minutes. And so I could get to her. She said, okay, get over here 8:45. And then I'll try to get you in. So, you know, all of those things are what key and techniques, I don't know if you call it a technique or not, but ways to be able to what? Get to the people that are in high places that can do what? That can put you where you need to be and get the things that you want to get.
My last question.
Yes.
I think. But for the sake of young people, you visited my university, and when you got there, you looked at the band, and before going to sleep, you wrote a drill for the band. And
I did what?
You wrote drill for the band.
Oh, yeah.
Marching band.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think all of the students know how to do that. Where does the learning begin? How do you practice it? How do you perfect it? How do you make it something that you know the audience is going to want to see?
Well, that's the responsibility of whoever the director is. You know, you have to be observant. You have to try to figure out if something that you don't know. And remember this, you have lifetime resources. You know who they are? Your college professors. When you get out and you run into, like my mentors, when I call back to them, like when I had that choir at Faraday High School, and I went in to be the band director, and I get there and he tells me I need the choir to sing Hallelujah tomorrow morning. And I never had a choir before. But what do? Get on the phone, call back to Southern University to the choir director and say, look, I got the choir. I didn't take the job to choir. I don't know nothing about choir. I don't know how to warm them up. He said, O'Neill, get in the car and get down here and we'll give you some warm-up exercises. So going back to your questions, you know, the resources, the band director is responsible for what? For exposing the young people in school to as much as they can to on techniques of all aspects of being what? An instrumental what? Music teacher, director, or what have you.
May I give them an example of something you did?
Okay, remind me.
University of Minnesota, you did a show in which you created a train.
Oh, Lord.
And
Yes.
the train actually had smoke coming out of its stack as it came down the field. And the wheels turned. And you had the little line that went back and forth to make sure that the wheels were turning.
Yeah,
All the details were there.
yeah. Now, the real story was that I remember I came up with the idea and the concept of doing it and didn't know how to make the wheels roll to go down the field and stay even. But guess who did know? A bright kid that was in the band said, I know how to get that done. I said, what do you mean? He got his little slide rule out and he said, I'll have it tomorrow morning. Let's have that rehearsal tomorrow. This kid went home and designed this concept of where everybody needs to do and be in that wheel in a certain place and how short along the steps should be. That kid came back the next afternoon before rehearsal. Everybody that was in those wheels were there. When I walked up to rehearsal, the wheels were rolling down the field. So this student was bright enough, smart enough. I still have that design where he did it with his hand in my file cabinet at home. The student actually figured it out. I had the concept, but the student actually figured it out. And it's a technique of measurement to it. And I was like blown away. All I know, I had the concept. I was gonna make the train and take the A train and let the train go down the field and the wheels not turn, and that didn't sound right. So I had to figure out how to make the wheels turn, and I mentioned it to the kid, and the kid did it. So we learned from students too, and you got some very, very bright students. If you open the door for them to walk in, they'll show you some things. Yeah, so I had forgotten about that.
See, we don't forget.
Yeah, that was good, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else before we finish? Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Sanford, I was in your,
I'm good.
I was in the band in 1975, remember the T5T. Greg McConnell was with us, and Mark was trombone player. I don't have any questions for you. I'm not an educator. I just want to say thank you for the impact you made on me. Now, I have a 12-piece R&B band. We play around the city in Richmond, okay? Now, what I remember most of you being a motivator during those pre-band camps when we had to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, and you had us on that field, and all day long, and I remember our band member was saying, man, why are we rehearsing so much? And we didn't find out until that first game. I believe we played Howard, and we went to Howard and we blew them out of the stands. Every band in the CIAA, including Norfolk State, who we call our favorite chumps, we blew them out the stage. Why? Because of your leadership. Now, you mentioned Barry White and that score, first, last, and everything. You wrote that for us. And every time before the band hit the field, we would play it. And that was our staple. You was a motivator because you told us you ain't gonna get nothing out of it until you put something in. And that was hard work. And I just want to say thank you, sir. I really appreciate you.
Oh man, I got blown away. That's very heartwarming. Since I've been back here in the last 12 or 14 hours, I have been reminded of some beautiful things. You know, things that you're not even aware of. You just get the job done. And it's been a great profession, far away from being an engineer, which I think I sure wish I had that Learjet though. But I got more from life and just looking out here at Dr. Phillips and all you guys who I guess say that I, had some kind of influence on you. I don't know, I was just doing, because I was really nothing but a kid when I came at 27, 28 years old. I didn't know. Mississippi Valley, I had students in the band. I was 22 years old when I went to college in Mississippi Valley. I had about 1/3 of the band, and Mississippi Valley had people that had been to the Army, and they were older than I was when I went there. But I go back now and hear them talk and saying, what, I did this, I did that, but it's been a wonderful experience. It's a great experience. The one thing that, while I'm on this, young people, that you have to be careful with, take your time and make a decision and use all of the resources available. Decide on where you want to go and get started early. Don't be like me, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I came out of high school. I didn't have an idea of what I want to do. Try to identify where you want to be. If Petersburg High School has a program, I have a program over there that you're impressed with it, program, get to know the band director. Go over and do what? Hang out with the band director. If you like the Norfolk State style in terms of what they are doing and that kind of thing, find out who the band director is, and when you finish school here, go to graduate school down there and learn what Norfolk State is doing, or learn what Louisiana State's doing, what have you. You've got to be resourceful to make it happen. When I came out of Southern University, I'd get in my car and the first time I saw a circle drill, Texas Tech had done it. I drove out to Texas, didn't even know the band director. I walked in the band room and said, "My name is O'Neal Sanford. I saw you do the circle drills. I want to know how that's done." Go to the source. Guess what? Most of them are going to be just fine with it. Don't stand out. Make a decision early, what you want to do, how you want to do it. Talk to your directors and all of your teachers and whatever. Look, I like to go and I like the University of Virginia. How can I get in there? Find a way to get it done. Yes. I think I had a question. One more question. Yeah.
So as a non-instrumentalist in your band, your first year here,
Yes, ma'am.
as a majorette,
Yes.
your influence carried even into the auxiliaries, because accuracy and precision was what you taught us. We were a good band before, had a lot of history, but the accuracy and precision that you taught, not just auxiliary auxiliary members, but the entire band, was just unheard of. And we didn't get it at first. We were practicing and trying to make everybody look like one.
Right.
And it wasn't until we came up to a band at one of the football games to see another band perform, and they were just all over the place. And we had that accuracy and precision. And from then on, you never had to tell us about it. But you brought something to us that we had not seen and were not just as familiar with before. And wasn't just on the instrumental side, it was also on the auxiliary. So we thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
And I still have my baton. 50 years later.
I remember you well, Rose.
Before we close out, anyone else? Anyone? Yes, Willie Elliott.
Yeah, Dr. Neal, I want to say I missed you by 1 year coming to Virginia State and being a part of the band. But what I wanted to share is that when I got here, I had the pleasure of working with some great musicians. But your best practices that you had, your legend here, you instilled those in the musicians in the band. And so while you may not have been here, they did some teaching for you. And I'm looking around the room and I'm thinking about Mark Phillips, Gregory,
Yeah.
back here, and some others who had graduated even came on the scene, to visit the band. Your legacy and your teaching, you instill that in great musicians and they pass that on. So I guess the lesson for all of us to learn is, if we are good and we do a good job of instructing and building capacity in students, we really are feeding and really cherishing and building a capacity for a lot of students and a lot of generations. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, thank you. We are a product of where we come from and our past. That's for sure. Now, what's the gentleman's name?
This is Willie Elliott.
Willie what?
Willie Elliott.
Yes, I remember the name. Yeah, I remember the name. Yes.
I remember the arrangements, the spinners, the sounds of Motown, the sounds of Philly, outstanding. I came in as a trumpet player, and after that first year, you decided you wanted to bring in some more brass instrumentation, and you brought in the mellophones. And wow, did it make a difference in the sound of the band. I recall the Emoja Classic in Connecticut that we went to 2 years in a row.
Wow.
I also recall waking up the entire campus at Tennessee State University when we snuck on the band on the football field that morning to run the show through one time. And the dorms were surrounding the stadium, and everybody, we woke them up and they watched us. Again, the memories. And I worked for you for the 4 years that I was here as a student worker. I drove the Riviera.
Oh, man, yeah.
And I just want to say, too, that the lessons that you taught us, that you taught me, led to a long career in education and leadership, because, again, you displayed the leadership skills that brought people together. We're talking about almost 150 people that were all on the same page because of your leadership and your skills in directing us. I just want to say I appreciate you and what you have done for this university and what you've done for me personally.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else before
I don't
we close?
feel like this is a job here. This is it's great to reflect, reflect back on the times. You just do. I don't even think about any of that. You guys bring that stuff up. All I was trying to do was survive and make sure you had a good experience, and and just kind of take care of the babies. That's what I was doing, just trying to get it done. Yes, Ms. Rose.
So one other thing, for this precision and accuracy, remember we had to have all white and practice all white on Fridays? Because you wanted to see all of us doing this movement, and different colors and variations and all just didn't work. And we were like, why we have to, and you couldn't find white back then. It was a struggle, but we did it because you wanted to see on practice on Fridays what else we needed to do to make that performance on Saturday the best that it could be. And we were the very best.
Thank you, Rose. I had forgotten about that stuff. Okay.
Before we close out, I do want Dr. Sanford to talk about one last thing. For many of you, some of you might have seen, a couple of years ago, maybe about 2 years ago, Dr. Sanford finished a book called A Maestro and Trailblazer from Slaughter. So I know he has a few copies with him today, so I want him to talk about the book and how you can get in all that.
Oh, my book. Unfortunately, that child that was born when I was here, that was born going to Minnesota, Christopher, he passed away about 3 years ago. Yeah, he was born with an asthma problem, and he got caught away from home without his pump, and actually just kind of choked, smothered to death in the car. He couldn't breathe, and so he passed away. But prior to him passing away, he had been on my back, Dad, you need to write your memoir because there are a lot of kids out there that need to read your book to see where you came from and how you got there. Ah, yes, son, I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it done. I mean, constantly writing me about that. And so after he passed, I was sitting in his studio because he was a musician. He was a trumpet player, a great trumpet player, I must say. And, got his master's and was working on his doctorate degree at what's the school in Catholic University in Washington, D.C. And just, fabulous trumpet player. So after he passed away, sitting in his studio looking there, and it just dawned on me that he had been writing me about that, and I had not gotten it done, and I immediately just flipped my chair around at the desk and started typing because I was going through some serious emotional challenges where I had to actually go and get some professional help to try to get it together. And after a couple of visits, with the doctor, Shrink, and he said, well, Neil, you may need to go on and complete the book. I had laid out about 20 chapters in the book. I said, but I've got some. He said, look, wherever you are with that book, he said, you need to shut it down. I had completed 12 chapters, and he said, you need to shut the book down. Maybe that'll help you get you across the line. I took his advice, closed the book out after 12 chapters, and I'm editing now to add the other chapters back in there. I shut it down, and then I said, you may need to get back on the Christian side of things, because I was angry with God and to the whole world because my son was gone, who was my legacy. And a couple of weeks in, got the book done, things started turning around for me. And that was the point after I completed the book. I had found my way back. And so that was the result of completing that book. And it's online, actually, Amazon out there if you guys want to get it. As a matter of fact, it's right now pending a documentary and possible a story on my life, a movie on the story of my life. It's close, and once it gets to 1,000 sales or so, it's there. I think it's about 800 or some sales going. I haven't really pushed the book. The book needed what I need, and that was what, to be able to go on with my life after completing what my son wanted me to do. So that's what's happening with the book. Yeah.
First of all, we'd just like to thank everyone for coming out today. I know several of you, Mark has one more thing. Oh, it's called A Maestro and Trailblazer from Slaughter. This is what it looks like right here.
I've got some flyers. Really.
He has some flyers too that they can take with them. So you can find the information online. But we thank everyone for coming out. I know everybody wants to come up and take some pictures and things. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's give a big hand for Dr. Sanford.
Hey guys, thank you. I feel honored to be back here, and it's just so I've just kind of ran through stuff. There's so many more things that I want to talk about, but I know you're probably tired of hearing me roll. To all of the young music educators, feel free to get my telephone number, my email address from your directors, and if I can be of assistance with you in any way. I'm always knowing about jobs now. People still call me and ask me to make recommendations. So if any of you are looking for a job when you graduate, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm available 24/7. Yeah, I'm one of them nutballs who don't sleep. I'm constantly going all the time. All right, thank you very much for coming out, and it's been a blast.